Okay, hello, welcome back to another game of chess. We're playing e4 as per flipping usual. My opponent is going to respond with a Sicilian defense, allowing me, of course, to go for a sneaky little a3 Mengarini Sicilian. They play knight to c6, effectively sealing their fate. Well, their fate's not quite sealed just yet, but we are going to go for this b4 winged gambit-esque idea. We're going to allow them to take. That's why their fate's not quite sealed yet, because, of course, they cannot accept this gambit. If they had gone takes, picked this up, grabbed the pawn, accepted the gambit that we're offering, we'd have gone c3, knight back, d4, and then from that position, if d5, very, very, very often I win these games. If they don't take, and this is a bit of advice if you want to play the Mengarini, pretty much my rule of thumb is whatever they play, if they don't take from that position, if they play e6, if they play d6, if they play whatever, knight f6, a6, whatever, we can play b5. Not a6, actually, sorry, excuse me. That's maybe the counterexample. But just push. Just attack this knight. Just say, listen, you think your knight can chill on c6, as it can in many other openings, unperturbed. Not here. b4, b5. Now, I'm not claiming that we have any major advantage off the back of that, but we, make the knight move. We kind of slow down the development through this central e7 square, which is a conduit for the development of a lot of pieces. I'm honestly thinking, should I play e5 with the idea to maybe slow down development of this, but also to not give you an easy d5, because if you play d5 and we take, you can recapture like this, or with the knight, etc. Those could be quite pleasant. If e5, then you play d5, which by I mean d5, then I take en passant, and you have to take with the queen, which might not be as pleasant as you might like. I'm going to play e5. I think this could be genuinely a really stupid idea. I'm doing only pawn moves here. e4, a3, b4, b5, and then e5, and then also e takes d6 en passant. I mean, we've made pure pawn moves for 6 moves straight. I don't know if this one was worth it. It seems like a vaguely interesting idea, though. I should probably develop a piece. So, I think just developing a knight. I mean, clearly, I've trashed the queen side to the extent that the king side is really the only hospitable place for me at the moment. And for the rest of the game, really, I've pushed my b pawn to b5. There's no way I'm castling queen side. So, knight f3, probably a bit of a no-brainer, insofar as it doesn't really impede anything I want to do, like playing f4, there's no real reason to try and go for that. So, I don't want to bring the queen out to over here. Knight f3 is going to improve my position, develop the knight, get me a step closer to castling this way. And in terms of move order nuance as to whether I wanted to play that right now or do something else first, it doesn't seem like there's anything particularly pressing. Now, they play e5, maybe intending to go for a little e4. By the way, I'm fairly sure the computer will have wanted me in this position to play like d4 straight away, just to lock that one in so that I can pretend that I know what I'm talking about if that happens to be correct. I think in that case I want to play d3, but then I may be blocking this bishop. Hold on, should I just play knight c3 then? Yeah, okay. Knight c3, I mean, I'm just developing my knights. This can't be a terrible idea. Maybe you go for f5 and start trying to roll me down the center. This could start to look a little scary, I have to admit, but worst case scenario, we end up just playing d3, and then it's like, okay, yeah, my bishop has to come to e2, but once I'm castled, this shouldn't really be much of a problem. Here, taking the opportunity to go for c4, or a bishop c4, to then play d3 later, could be a very good idea. I'm just thinking maybe here, do you go knight f4, and then is this a problem? I could play g3. You're not going for that check, because then you just trap your knight. Okay, I'm starting with bishop c4. What I'm thinking is, this is a hole. You've got the pawn on c5, you've got the pawn on e5. In fact, in this case, it was a little two-step to the e5 square. Therefore, unless, for instance, a bishop e6 and I decide to allow it to happen with like a bishop takes, allowing the pawn takes, maybe, even though queen takes might be better in that scenario, such as not to get double isolated pawns, there's never going to be a black pawn that defends this d5 square again. That means I could probably look to start exploiting that by, at least controlling it and maybe whacking a piece there. Who knows? I think I'm going to start with d3, though. I think I'm not going to allow this. I think I'm going to allow the movement of my light squared bishop, which might mean dark squared bishop. Maybe I go like this. Okay, they play h6 to prevent the bishop to g5 idea. But I guess, I can just castle. I don't know. I don't love my position right now. I feel like I will soon, though. They're going to go bishop e7 and castle almost certainly. So if I castle bishop e7, rook e1, they castle, what on earth am I playing for there? Bishop here, I guess? Don't hate that. Right, let's get my king safe and out of the center. Clearly, this needs to happen at some point. I'm going to go for it. Of course, they go bishop e7. I do quite like playing a4. Maybe at some point we go for this, but I think they go b6, bishop here, and actually that is a fantastic piece. But I think we can go bishop b2 without too many regrets. I don't really see any prospects along this diagonal. Maybe bishop e3, but honestly, why not sit on this gorgeous diagonal here, this fianchetto diagonal, have the bishops looking like snipers towards this king side. I mean, we've definitely mobilized the bishops to some extent well. Now rook e1, and we start to put some serious pressure on that e5 square. Maybe a knight e4, and you take, and then, I don't know. Okay, bishop g4 is slightly uncomfortable. I can admit that. Honestly, I don't hate this, though. Let's just go for this. We hit the queen. You kind of have, you don't have to take at all, really. You could just move the queen, but where else, yeah, where else does the queen actually belong in that context? Probably nowhere. So I don't want to trade this. What I want to do is go rook up, tempo on the bishop, and compel it to move. There's a lot of pressure on this square. You can't play f6 to defend it. You could play bishop f6, of course, but I really do like my bishops and the way they're pointing. I feel like this is eventually going to serve me well. You know, position your pieces optimally, treat your pieces right, and they'll treat you right in turn. So, you know, we don't have any immediate tactical threats, I don't think. Nothing obvious. I have a little bit of initiative here insofar as we threaten this. Okay, so we get our hands on a bishop pair. I mean, this starts to look like the defining feature of the game, I think. A well-mobilized bishop pair towards this king. I reckon we could be in for a building attack, especially with the rook lift and stuff. Hold on. And this pawn being pinned, so this knight's actually a little loose. King's got to move, and then we just, I don't know, sack here to mess up the pawns or something. You'd imagine they probably end up with the bishop on f6. I don't know. If I were my opponent, I'd probably unpin just prophylactically, because this looks very unpleasant, and I might forget about it and hang a knight. Okay, yeah, bishop f6, as expected. Now, I do have this tempo that I can threaten this knight with. The question is, like, what, you're just going to go knight g4 maybe? Because if I allow the knight to sort of pivot into here, that's going to be a major problem. Did I say g4? I meant f4, sorry. Maybe just g3, honestly. Try and kill the knight. And then eventually it's h4, h5 or something? I'm not sure. Queen g4, knight f4. I really just don't see much there. I'm going to play g3. It's an unprompted pawn push in front of my king, which is why I'm so hesitant. Because in general, pushing pawns in front of your king for no reason, not the finest idea. There are a couple of reasons, though, why I think this is actually a justified case, why we should break that principle. Number one is the sort of very compelling reason that we just kill the knight's forward prospects, and actually now this piece starts to look a little, not trapped, you know, you can reroute somewhere and do something vaguely interesting, but, you know, we massively worsen the knight. Knight f4 is now something we don't have to worry about. Also, are you really going to exploit this, given that you don't have any light squared bishop to do anything along the light squares that are now weak? And given that, okay, if they were castled in the opposite side of the board, maybe they start pushing pawns, bite on the hook, try and open stuff up. If you start doing that, you're going to make yourself as in danger as you're making me. So I feel like this move's decent. They do start to reroute the knight, which makes sense. Now, this is where to cook something up and do it relatively quickly. Let's start with rook e1. It's a move that threatens to win the pawn. It brings the rook to the e file. We stack on the semi-open file we have. It's our only semi-open file, because of course we have 7 pawns with none of them doubled. No way. They bring the knight straight back. That is a massive concession of the fact that this is actually way harder to defend. It's a blockaded weakness, because again, this is pinned and you never play f6, and even if you do, that's a problem. So the knight comes back, a complete waste of a couple moves here, and now we can threaten to take this again. Hold on. A queen g4 maybe. You unpin, but then I go like h4, h5. I'm starting to really like this. Queen g4. Maybe there's something more compelling, but I don't know. I think you've got to just move your king, and, you know, we've got some initiative here. Maybe this ends up pinned. I don't know. I'm thinking h4. I'm thinking h4, and I'm coming in to start pushing and harassing, and actually g3 to prepare h4 was another reason to play g3, because this is another way that we can start putting some pressure on, squeezing this king. And I mean, if here and then maybe you just end up on h8, but then maybe stuff opens up and eventually this bishop's great. I don't know. Maybe we just slide back here, sack on here at some point. We're very mobile and free and fluid and well developed. These rooks kind of doing nothing. The knight is just a problematic piece. Everything right now currently you have is doing a defensive job tied down to the e5 pawn. So okay, you bring the rook, cool. But I'm just going to play h5. No further questions, Your Honor. Yes, please, move that knight. Okay, knight to h8's a move. I mean, you've heard knights on the rim are dim. Have you heard knights in the corner are poorer? I guess. Not my finest moment, but this knight has no moves. We've killed a knight. I'm a fan of horses. I don't feel amazing about that. I've done something evil, frankly. But now I need to, hold on, how do I keep putting pressure on? I could play f4. Is that ridiculous? We really are pushing every pawn in front of the king. You don't have this check, which would be awesome. f4, because I'm threatening to take. And if you take, this is just hanging. I'm going to play f4. I think we can still mount pressure on this pawn. Somehow the whole time my rook's been blockading this pawn, which has been such a problem. I mean, I didn't even really realize that was going to be... I guess I was already mounting pressure on it here. And then this knight idea, and wow, it's just stayed there. And eventually, I mean, it's going to collapse. But we've got so much pressure. Like, this rook has one legal move. Your bishop has a couple, but, you know, in terms of, you know, if we get rid of blunders here, hardly anywhere that it can move without, again, you're just conceding this. The pieces are overworked. The queen's not doing anything. The light square bishop is gorgeous. This knight has no moves. And I don't know if f4 was the best idea, but it does seem like another amazing way to keep some initiative going on. We've just had initiative, this kind of collection of tempo rolling forward here. The pressure we put on e5, they over-defended. Hold on, they've moved, and I don't want to... Jesus, on a bike, right. I have en passant here. I also just have takes. I also have check. What is going on? I don't even like en passant. I think they can open up the rook. I'm not doing that. Do I go check? Maybe. If I go here and you take, I go here. I feel like I've got the check slightly later. I'm just going to take here. Let's start by taking here. It's a simple fork. I've got check coming up, maybe. If you move the queen somewhere... Hold on, what the hell? I like keeping the bishop alive, honestly. Let's play rook takes. Let's play rook takes. Just keep the... Oh, look at what's opened up here. Look at what's opened up here. This is disgusting. I feel like keeping the bishop as this long-range piece along this diagonal. Maybe queen f5 is a better move. I just feel like... No, okay, fine. Take with the rook. I love keeping this bishop here. I should have gone for queen f5. I'm so angry I didn't. Maybe I'm not, actually. I can just take. What am I complaining about? Takes. You take on g3. Oh my god, king f3. Where's your check? Oh wait, no, hold on. Sorry. If takes. What am I talking about? You can't take on g3. This is a check immediately. And it's... Yeah, so, you know... You don't want to be in this kind of position. This is not the kind of position you really want to find yourself in ever when you're playing chess. Look at these bishops, man. Hold on. If I sell this game, I will cry. Rook here. Takes, check. I feel like this gets a bit complicated. Hold on, there's no need to just hang a rook for no reason. Here. Let's play rook here. I don't know. This starts to look like it really can't go wrong unless rook e1 and somehow I can't escape those checks. I feel like I should be able to escape those checks. Maybe I should have just played rook f1. I don't know, but I mean, currently the material advantage I have is a bishop pair and a pawn for a knight, and that knight is currently on h8. So, hold on, here, you don't have a check along this diagonal, do you? You do have the... No, you don't. I'm going king g2. I don't see a check. This and this doesn't work. You don't have a check along the diagonal. I'm not accessible anywhere else. Your queen's currently hanging. Maybe I should have gone here to make this be hanging, this be hanging. I'm not like looking to win material here. I'm looking to get this check in. I've disconnected the queen from g6 so that when I give this check, you can't then block with the knight and then, I don't know, take with the queen somehow and wriggle your way out of it. You have to be mated here. What the hell is that? Give me that. Yes, please. Okay. Okay. I mean, there's a point at which I believe you should resign. And my opponent agrees. What did I say about the bishop pair? Is there more picturesque of a way for the game to end than this? Threatening mate in one. I mean, the knight being on h8, unable to move until the end. Oh my lord, please God, let that have been a pretty accurate game. Let's go to the start and we'll wait for this to load. And we're going to watch it load. Normally I cut this bit out because it's boring as hell. But if that was pretty accurate, I'm feeling very good. Okay, this is looking awesome. This is looking awesome so far. This is looking absolutely... Okay. Just fill it in continuously. That's all I need. You know what? 95% accuracy, 2 inaccuracies, which I will wear, of course, as per usual, as a badge of honor. A couple moments that were sort of missed win-esque inaccuracies, which we can look at. Queen g4 was one of them, d3 was the other one. Okay. Opponent didn't even play terribly, just, I don't know, made a couple of not great moves. And that bishop pair, baby. What on earth? Let's go through that game. So e4, c5. We went for this. Yeah, opening the database isn't going to be wildly helpful here because they declined our Mengarini. We pushed past. They moved the knight back. I went for e5. Hold on, this is a genuinely interesting moment. Is e5? It's a reasonable move. Because d5... Okay. I mean, it's hardly amazing. I do wonder whether this has ever been played before in the database. Hold on. Lichess database. e5 has been played, okay, 17 times. Apparently a4 has got a crazy win rate, but it's not exactly a massive data size. I don't hate this e5 idea, honestly. g3, I'm not playing that, shut up. Knight f3, sure. Bishop b2, sure. Probably should just get on with developing. I like this e5 idea. Takes here, and then queen takes was actually not a great idea, so they should have played knight here and recaptured this a different way. That does make some sense. It still just didn't let them get that quite pleasant central idea where, like, if here, I'd imagine we turn on the engine, yeah, d5 is their best move, and then maybe I can play e5, sure. But it feels like they're kind of playing quite a pleasant French defense-esque system. Not really, actually. I don't know. I don't hate my e5. Well, let's leave it there and move on. Knight f3, knight here. Yeah, just good developing stuff. Here I had knight g5. So d3 was inaccurate because knight g5 was actually a missed win. Going in for this, you don't have the knight to come and defend. Bishop e6, I can just take, and the pawns suck. That's a really good point. I did not realize how potent this move would be. I mean, their best move, knight here, is a problem here, I guess. I can take like this, you move the king wherever, and then just come and defend this. This gets quite complicated. I need to be kind of more on the lookout for knight g5 ideas. They are, especially once this e-pawn's been pushed, fairly potent, and there is, in fact, a part of my repertoire that involves one of these quite heavily, so I should be seeing knight g5 as an opportunity there. But d3, reasonable move. They play h6, not to prevent this. I now see this move through a completely new lens. They probably realized that knight g5 was problematic. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. We castle, bring the bishop, bring the rook, and bring the knight to the center, bring the rook here. And at this point, things are going well. They should move their bishop. Instead, they trade. They gave me a bishop pair. And from this moment on, as you can see in the graph, I didn't really let go of that advantage. They could have gone bishop here. I wouldn't have been able to stay on the 4th rank anywhere. I'd have had to retreat, although apparently there's bishop takes here. Oh yeah, that's why they took, sorry. They didn't just randomly take, it's because there was a problem here. And if knight takes, I can maybe play rook takes, and then, okay, you gotta play g6. I mean, I win the pawn and this looks kind of uncomfortable, so they tried to get rid of the knight because I was mounting a load of uncomfortable pressure on the e-pawn. They can't play pawn to f6, and if they do this, immediately the bishop hangs, so it does make sense why they took this. Instead, though, they should have just hung the pawn, apparently, and just valued their bishop pair over the pawn, because from here, g3, no way is that the best move. I am cracked at chess. Oh baby, best move. There we go. Okay, g3 is lovely. They go back with the knight, but we bring the other rook in. That's a no-brainer. Then, okay, I could have gone for h4 sooner. I went for this because honestly, you know, you can easily just overlook this and allow this to hang. Okay, so admitting to playing some hope chess there, awesome stuff. We go for h4 at this point. They should have sacked the bishop because honestly, everything else was looking far more grim. They sacked the bishop and then, what, do we just take like this? No, because there's f5. Whoa, hold on. If they'd sacked the bishop here, which, okay, I would have noticed f5 is a problem. I would have had to take this with rook, maybe? And then I guess we're just opening up that bit. Wow. And then the bishop's hanging in the end, presumably. So, like, you can't just get away with something like this because I can play rook f5. Wow. Okay, bishop h4 was an opportunity that they had, but I think I'd have found my way through that. We kick the knight back. We play f4. Was that the best move? Presumably it was, right? Yeah, awesome. Queen e2, also possible, but f4, fantastic. At this point, we take in the center, and then I don't know, I regretted not giving the queen f5 check, but here, mate in 6, becomes mate in 5, becomes mate in 6 again, oops. I had rook f7, why didn't I consider that? What an idiot. Why on earth did I not consider that? I just have mate. Okay, what an absolute fool I am. Made things way harder. But then king g2, yeah, you're just going to trade, give that up. And there's clearly no escaping the mate here. You know, once this pawn collapses and once the bishops are looking down these diagonals and once your king has precisely 0 legal moves caged from such a distance by such a sniping bishop pair and an annoying little pawn on h5, you're clearly not going to survive from here. Honestly, I really should have found rook f7 because I was looking to just get rid of the rook and give the check. I was even thinking about rook g5, so I wonder, would rook g5 have been remotely playable? Yeah, but it just becomes mate in 13. Okay. With this bishop pair, I could basically play anything and still win the game. Can I play queen g5? That's the real test. No, okay, maybe not anything. But yeah, we went for this, and then, yeah, in this position, there would have been mates all over the place. And so my opponent resigned. Thank you guys immensely for watching. What a disgusting game, what a disgusting bishop pair. That really was the bishop pair from hell. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it, I upload a bonus exclusive top-of-the-range bit of Will Taylor chess content to the Patreon every single week. The link is in the description. It is the best way to support the channel. There are a few tiers. There's a 4 quid one, a 8 quid one, a 32 quid one, which I'm not expecting anyone to get, just if anyone has cash absolutely spilling out of their pockets and fancy supporting the WTC YouTube endeavor. Really, the 8 quid one is you get the 4 videos a month, perhaps 5 if there are 5 Sundays in the month. You get your name on the end screen of all of my YouTube videos, and you get major discounts if you're a patron for a certain amount of time. I haven't quite decided exactly what I'm going to do there, but I'm adding a perk basically where whenever I sell some kind of deep dive opening coursey type situation, which I'm preparing at the moment, you'll get like 90% off or something, maybe 80 if I'm feeling a little harsh. But of course, if you're not remotely interested, your regular viewership is more than I can ask for already. Thank you so much for watching. Will Taylor Specs out. What the hell was that? Like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.